Hello, everybody. Welcome to the webinar, Using Dashboards for Adaptive Management in Conservation. So it's 1 minute to 3 o'clock Aotearoa New Zealand time. So we might just give a couple of minutes for people to join. And if you've just joined us, could you please let us know in the chat where you're calling from? Oh, I see a familiar name. Kia ora, Debs.
Kia ora, Hajan. How are you? Fine,
Debs,
Natalie.
hi.
I can see a couple of names here. I'm actually in Australia at the moment, the Kiwi in Australia, up on the Sunshine Coast. And I'm staying with my mother, who's a big supporter of bush heritage. So how could I not be in this meeting?
That's lovely.
Kia ora, Debs.
Kia ora, and it's good to see you, Hajan.
Not coming down south, Debs?
Gosh, no, it's too cold up here even.
Fair enough.
I'm actually catching up with a project here on the Miradi River around blue carbon work that some of the TNC colleagues have been involved in. Quite exciting.
Didn't recognise you, Tuna, with your glasses on.
It's an occasional thing, getting more frequent.
And another one from Aotearoa, kia ora, Beth. Nice to see you. Beth, we're just kind of putting where we're from, where we're calling from in the chat.
Awesome, thank you.
How many have we got? 19. I think we might make a start. It's seeing it's 3 past the clock. So kia ora, welcome everybody into today's webinar. So in a little while, we'll be hearing from, and sorry, just before that, just letting everyone know, if you haven't noticed already, this webinar is being recorded. So if you feel uncomfortable being recorded with your video on, you can turn your video off. Yeah, and we'll carry on our conversation. So in a little while, we'll be hearing from Claire Dodd from using dashboards for adaptive management in conservation. But just before we start, I'd like to kick us off with a karakia, which is what we usually do here in Aotearoa. So whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, e hi ake ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hohu, tihei mauri ora.
Mauri ora.
So loosely translated, that means get ready for the westerly and be prepared for the southerly. It will be icy cold inland and icy cold on the shore. May the dawn rise red-tipped on ice, on snow, on frost. So it's probably a little bit late in the afternoon for some frost. But I think for the southern hemisphere, it's quite apt for us here, feeling the chill for most of the country today. But the sun's come up on my end, so that's quite nice. And yeah, it's always a good thing good karakia that I use for opening meetings or workshops. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Claire, our speaker today. So Claire has 15 years experience in conservation planning, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation and reporting using the open standards for practice of conservation, which we have shortened it to conservation standards. She is currently the National Conservation Planning Coordinator at Bush Heritage Australia and is responsible for coordinating, developing, and deploying Bush Heritage team of conservation coaches and delivering coaching support to Bush Heritage staff and partners. Claire also has extensive experience in the use of conservation standards and Miradi, a dashboard together, and integration with other business tools and systems, which she will talk about today. Claire is also one of our CCNet coordinating team members, and we also have a couple of other committee members today. So I see we have Saras here. Saras, if you want to wave. I have Nat here on my screen. I don't see Leah yet, so maybe she's not yet here, but she will be. And of course, there's myself as well. And yeah, and we welcome all of you who are calling from various parts of the world to listen in and share your experience as well, maybe at the end. So Claire is gonna first talk through some of her slides, and then she'll give us a demo. And then we'll have plenty of time for questions and answers after that. So I understand also that there's a couple of Bush Heritage tech here who can help answer some very techy questions. So yeah, take it away, Claire. Over to
That
you.
was a lovely introduction. Thank you, Hajin. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. Hopefully you can hear me all right. I should be wearing a headset, but I'm just kind of yelling into my computer. So I hope I don't sound like echoing and kind of annoying. You're going to have to listen to me talking now for the next 30 minutes. Okay, I'll just start my little clocky thing there so I don't keep. What is this saying? Yes, okay. I'm just going to share my screen, and we're just going to go through a couple of little kind of, you know, usual stuff that you know already, but I think it's good to just, why is that not? Come on, share. You can see that, okay? Yep. So as you know, you're in the using dashboard for adaptive management and conservation. And I'm just going to set the scene with a couple of slides before I go into the demo. And as Halshin said, this is part of the Conservation Coaches Network, and it's part of our webinar series. I just want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the places that we work and live and play. I'm calling in from Melbourne, Wurundjeri country, and recognise that this land was never ceded. My computer has a bit of a meltdown sometimes, so apologies. Just quickly, Bush Heritage Australia, who are we? We're a national not-for-profit organisation that we work across, well, I just said national. Some of our key strategies are acquiring properties of conservation, and we partner with Aboriginal groups across the country, and we also have regional and local partnerships. And we're moving into an agricultural partnership strategy phase as well. So, I mean, it's pretty obvious. What's a dashboard? A dashboard is a way of displaying various types of visual data and having it in the one place. And why do we use them? They're pretty great at turning complex data into clear visuals and charts and different diagrams. Saves time compared to manual reporting and digging through spreadsheets and Word documents and things. They're really great at helping to identify the things that are working. I mean, that's the things that we're always thinking about when we're looking at adaptive management, but they really help to identify some of those key areas. And then also to think about where support's needed. Dashboards help with accountability for our staff. our funders and for partners. And they inform that whole adaptive management process. And I mean, part of adaptive management is about prioritising our actions when we've got limited resources. So it really helps to kind of, you know, pinpoint where those priorities are. And another thing is that they're really helping with consistency of analysis across different projects as well. There's heaps more, but it'll probably take me half a day to go through them. Who uses them and how? This is probably generally for lots of different organisations, but also for bush heritage. Managers use them to actions and outcomes across their own individual projects, but then they can compare across other projects and programs. Ecologists and cultural advisors and marketing engagement team use them to see the condition of changes of our targets and our threats, prioritising and kind of looking at progress against strategies. We've got our executive level and boards that want to track high level key performance indicators and general organisational impact. And then we have our partners, so we want to be able to share and kind of look at the data across our projects, and it supports collaboration. So when we think about how we set up our program to be able to then facilitate the development of a dashboard, Bush Heritage uses Miradi. We have all of our projects in shared. And part of the program is that it has a set of standard classifications. And there's also capacity to add classifications based on your organisation's needs. And Bush Heritage has added a number of our own classifications. So this then helps to, when we export the information into kind of through an API, it helps us then to be able to support the data relationships and the data models that we need to then visualise these different factors in the dashboard. So for our targets, when we're thinking about a target here, which is just highlighted in the blue rectangle, so labyrinth land systems and ephemeral wetlands is a target on one of our reserves. And you can see that it's on the right there. Behind that target, behind the factor properties, we assign specific classifications to that target. So then that helps us to then keep those data relationships. And for threats, threat is a large-scale, high-severity bushfires. Again, we have the factor properties and those classifications that can be assigned to that particular factor type. And the same for strategies. So if fire management might be a strategy, we assign those classifications. And then in all the different systems that support our work, if we see the classification 221 fire management, or just the number 221, we know that that is the number that keeps all of those, the same factor properties together that's based on related to fire management. So what's next? I'm going to just show you a couple of examples. Firstly, I'll just go through quickly the marine program, the Miradi program, marine island seascape example program dashboard that's accessible to anybody. And the same data relationships and data models is used for the Bush Heritage Conservation Management dashboard. It's just it's a different way that we've set up the visuals. And we're pulling information from different systems, so Miradi and our finance system and other systems. So I'm just going to escape from there for a minute and move to here. Just before I go on, was there any questions before I just move into the demo? I'll take that as I'll just keep moving.
Yeah, Claire, there's no questions either
right.
in chat or, yeah, nobody's put up in their hand.
Cool. So this is the, move people out of the way so I can actually see the full screen. All right. So this is a Miradi Island seascape example. I just moved to the front of the. So you've got the first page is a program overview. So this is pulling information. It's assigned, you've assigned those classifications to the different factor properties. And then there's pulling that information through the API into this dashboard through, this is a using Power BI. There's lots of different systems you can use to develop dashboards, but I'll be showing you Power BI for these examples. So this one's pulling information across. You've got the, hopefully that's not too small, Miradi Island Seascape program level. And then you're clicking on different things and it's showing you different information at different levels. Pretty snazzy stuff. What that's showing you here is a program overview, so you can see the different project names, the descriptions, overall ratings, overall viability, really high level information, general target health, threat status. It's got a relatively simple map, which is being pulled out of Miradi as well, and then general progress, project progress. But it's showing you information across multiple projects. Project overview, again, information's being pulled directly out of Miradi, depending on where you choose to pull information out of. Overall project description, what's the scope, you've got your percentage completeness towards goals, overall objective. You can see here how you're progressing against those particular objectives for strategies. And there's some simple information here around budgets. We've got our outcomes progress, so how we're going with our intermediate results and tracking against objectives. And if you use results chains or a series of change in your projects, you can search across each of the different results chains as well. And if I just click on a measure down here, indicators, intermediate result indicators against particular objectives, you can see that there's a really simple measures rating chart here as well. This one's an action progress, so progress against strategies. And so you can see here where it kind of really brings you in visually to where there's major issues. So anything that's yellow or red, that would be a conversation starter if you were talking with your project team or managers. And then it's like thinking about, okay, why is there an issue? And then do we need to pull in resources? Or is this strategy actually not working? Let's go and review it. Target viability, so how healthy are our targets currently? You can see targets, current status, future status, and then details around that. That's going to then feed into your target goals, and they're down here. And then if you just click on your seagrass beds is a target, healthy seagrass beds, and then again, really simple measurement rating charts. And then threats. So you've got your threat table, that's all your threats. You could have a look at just a project, or you want to go to the Marine Seascape program, or you want to just clear the classification and then you can see the whole thing. And then activity progress. So we've got our progress status, what I kind of looked at before with that in that other page. But this also adds the work resources, so who's been assigned to what, how many days, and then the project expenses, so you can kind of see the full breadth of what is required for a particular strategy. And then you can see this kind of high-level work plan for different people. And then if you just click on it, there's a resource, you can click on that and you can see what that particular resource has been assigned to across the multiple program projects within that program. So that's the Miradi Island Seascape example, and that one's available for anyone to have a look at on the Miradi information website. I can send through the link. We'll just move to the Bush Heritage. Oh, no, sorry, pretty good. I'll just move to the Bush Heritage Conservation Management dashboard. Again, similar data models, it's pulling information from those same factors, your targets, your threats, your strategies. We've assigned classifications to those factors, and particularly the factors that we want to be able to pull into these dashboard pages and design in certain ways so we can keep those relationships. I'll just go, we can search by region. I'll just clear this filter. We're just on an impact monitoring target goals page. So this shows everything, but if I just want to, Bush Ferry just has 3 different regions, and then we have the national office. But if I want to just look at the West region, it's going to hone in onto that West region, which is Western Australia and South Australia. We have priority landscapes. So I wanted to see South Australia arid rangeland. So that's a landscape, and it has multiple projects within that landscape plan. And then if I want to drill down to a project, say Bonbon Reserve, it takes me all the way down to that project. So you've got your targets here, you've got your baseline from when we first acquired the property, current status, and then future status. And then we've got our goals here. How are we going to measure that we're actually achieving our goals? We've got our impact indicators down in this list here. I'll just expand that, and you can see all the different indicators that we're measuring, and the details around methods that we're using for some of those indicators. Up here on the right is just a high-level Sankey chart. We use these, we can pulling all the information from these dashboards. We can have a national view of all the properties that we own and manage. And we can see from this chart's basically a visual of what's happening in this part here. So you can see you've got your 4 fairs moving into good. We've got one that's remaining fair. And our goal is to get this one to good and all of these goods to very good. So this is kind of just a visual view of how things are tracking. And we can do that at the landscape scale. I'll just clear that, see how it changes a little bit. And then we do it at the national scale. So in our impact report each year, we'll have that in our impact report around the discussion around how we're going across our properties and target health. Outcome monitoring, so our threats and objectives. So here's the Bonbon threat rating table, shows you how things are kind of tracking. If you hover over it, it gives you a bit more detail. You can see what's kind of going on there and the details of what very high means for overall threat rating for bufflegrass. Down here, we've got the outcomes being sought, so threat reduction results and objectives. And then down here, we've got the list of what things that we're measuring for those, how do we know that we're achieving that, the reduction in that particular threat rating. Output monitoring, so we have 3 layers of monitoring. We have impact for targets, outcome for threats, and then output for strategy effectiveness. And this is just your high-level strategy progress reporting. This one's just at the property level, and then if I just clear that, we can see it will give us for all of them. And then again, I mentioned in the last dashboard example that it really does hone your eyes into, okay, there's some minor issues here with some of these strategies. Let's get the project team together when we're doing our quarterly reporting, talk with your manager, try to figure out what the issue is. And then there'll be some output indicators down here about, intermediate results and what we're measuring. This pie chart here just kind of gives a quick overview of where there's progress reports and where there aren't any. Project work plan, again, similar view as the previous dashboard example. So I just click on a resource. Ecologist comes up across multiple properties. We've got Bonbon Reserve. They're also part of the Bulkamata Reserve. And then there's all these different strategies and activities that they're involved in, and we've assigned days to that. So we can see that this particular resource has been assigned 331 days across all the projects. So clearly that's not, unless they want to work every day of the year, clearly that's too many. So then we go back in and then start jigging things around so we can be a bit realistic about how much an individual resource can actually implement based on what's been developed in our plans. Budget progress. So this is where we're bringing information not from Miradi anymore. We've developed our budgets in Miradi, but this is where we're pulling information out of the finance system. So we can see that our budgets are compared to actual, and we're tracking that throughout the year. So this is where we do quarterly kind of reforecasting, and you'll come in here and see how you're tracking against what you actually budgeted for. And that the brown line is the budget and the blue line is the actuals for this particular quarter. So that really helps people track how they're going with their expenditure and coming into one place instead of having to kind of, you know, scrabble around in different systems. Budget planning, we're trying to encourage people to put in multi-year budgets, particularly around, you know, big infrastructure projects. So you can see there's still some data missing in some of these. This is just demo anyway. But we've just got this just kind of outlines your budget, shows what was happening last year, just so you can kind of check, oh yeah, did this. This is our budget for this year. And then the idea will be to have multiple year budgets so we can kind of see what we need to resource over multiple years and not just this particular financial year. If I just set, you can just see how it points into a bonbon example. And if I want to look at particular infrastructure projects, you can just see what's happening in the infrastructure space for that particular landscape. And then also if I just want to look at bonbons. That's budget validation. That's just a check in case there's a missing code or a taxonomy hasn't been assigned. So that's just a kind of quality check for us. Capital budget planning, slightly dealt with differently in our kind of business framework. So we just have a capital budget planning page. So we can see what some of the big ticket budget items are that are part of the capital budget. So we've just separated that into a separate page. Grant expenditure. So if there's any grants, we can kind of see how we're tracking with, you know, we get the grant in and then how are we tracking to implement and spend the grant money, and then, you know, it's easier for us to be able to await that grant with all this financial information in place. Project level progress report. So each year we'll go in and give a bit of a update on how we think the project meaning a reserve, for example, could be a landscape plan. And then just give a bit of a spiel about how did we go this year? Did we do what we said we were going to do? Were there any issues? Lessons learned, next steps. So this is just that project level overview. And the idea with this was to provide a bit of narrative around what the priorities need to be for next year. How successful have we been this year? And then that just provides that additional information for budget decision makers. And then we have some program pages. So this is still relatively high level, but I'll just clear that one. So National Fire Program. So remember, if you remember before, I was mentioning about the classifications for strategies. So 221 is fire management. So every plan that has a strategy that's about fire management, which all of them do, we need to have a fire plan for all of our reserves. 221 is that key classification, and this is pulling all the information from anything in Miradi that has been assigned that classification. So you can see across the whole portfolio how we're going for fire, like the general overall ratings, progress reports, budgets, and then that thing's hovering just over where I want to read that thing. No way. And historical spend on fire too, just to kind of get a sense of how we've been going. And then we've got partnerships, National Health Program, invasive predators. Just go through quickly because it's the similar information, just different programs. The next step for us in further developing these dashboards will be another page of the same program but looking at some of those measures against like percentages, against related goals and objectives, and then also some spatial information around how we're going with, depending on the best way to represent some of this information. And maybe it's a map, say for weed management, we want to kind of see the percentage of area that's been treated. Weeds. And then we have this overall target health by habitat type. I just mentioned in the slide deck earlier that the targets were one of the key kind of factors we assign a classification to. And with the new IUCN ecosystem typology, we've added that to the Bush Heritage program. And then hopefully, oh no, hang on, I just clear that. And then we haven't assigned too many yet, but where we have, you can see what's going on with particular habitat types. So if I want to see how we're going with tropical, subtropical forests, these are some of the projects that we've assigned that taxonomy to the target, so you kind of start getting a sense of how things are going nationally. And again, you've got those Sankey charts that are giving you a bit of a overall kind of different view of how things are rated and kind of tracking. And this is just a simple page that we developed, starting to kind of think about some of those high-level impact report measures that we like to share with our supporters and ourselves. So you Sankey chart again, this is all the properties, the overall threat rating, how we're kind of going with that, number of species, different types of strategies, and then one of them is hectares planted. So we can pull out all the different measures across all of the projects that are, have a re-veg strategy, and kind of see total hectares for revegetation strategies for the year. So you could build anything depending on what you're kind of wanting to measure. And it really helps to have this one page where that you go to, whereas before we were kind of just having to count things separately. A couple of other things we're just working on is a knowledge strategy, knowledge gap. So when we identify knowledge gaps, we again assign taxonomies to that around different gaps and then different research themes. And then that becomes part of our knowledge strategy. We want to count how many research projects we've got going on, and then publish papers as well. So there's a whole different, so many things you can do with these dashboards, but that's just an example of some of the things that we've been working on here at Bush Heritage. I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment. And what have I got? 1:32. I'll probably stop talking, to be honest, because but look, let's open it up for questions.
Thank you, Claire. That was really, 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 I think there's quite a lot of things in there in a very short period of time. And I think Beth now has a question for you. Go, Beth.
Actually, I have a number of questions, but
Oh, yeah.
so that I don't overwhelm you. Like who set this up? Because Power BI that's a whole learning space in itself. And then how many, I mean, was it something that you contracted in, set up, and then you're just running with that? Or do you have a number of people that have that skill and so they tweak it as it needed?
Well, that's a very good question. We have some in-house skills to a certain level, and then we have a contractor who happens to be on the call, Mike Honey. So he gets into the nitty-gritties and the real technical stuff. So that's kind of how we're managing it at the moment. And we've had staff historically that have kind of got into the nitty-gritties, but they've moved into different positions. So resourcing that, you need to the maintenance. You have to make sure that it updates automatically. So that's kind of happening. Whereas we used to have to do it manually. So there's lots of the improved functionality as time goes on. But that will be something we need to work out how we're going to resource the continued. I mean, as you can see, there's a lot of good stuff there, but you know, there's so much more we can do. Yeah, and just thinking about what's the best way to resource this.
And then if people are okay with me asking my next like couple questions because they're related, how often is the data updated and how often is it reviewed?
Just pipe in whenever you want, Mike. 3 times a day, particularly for the budget data. Those budget pages are the ones that people use a lot because that's like day-to-day invoices, tracking budgets, that kind of thing. So yeah, they're automatically updated 3 times a day.
And the second question, as managers, how often do they review it? I mean, I guess if things are changing more frequently, they're reviewing it more frequently, and if there's no change happening, they push it out.
Yeah, so I think I didn't answer your second part of that question, actually.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. You mentioned something about the review of did you mean of the data? Yeah, so the review of the data happens in Miradi, so as part of each project plan. So there's different review cycles. Is that?
No, I meant like from managers managing the
Oh,
projects
okay, right.
and that sort of thing. How often are they going through
so-
and looking at things?
Yeah, not as much as we'd like, to be honest. We're still kind of trying to familiarise people with the dashboards and kind of review and build and make them better as we kind of released them at the end of last year. So definitely used around when we do reforecasts and at the end of the year when we actually plan for the following year. But we are trying to encourage people to look in them more, particularly as you can see across projects, and use the dashboards and the colours to kind of stimulate conversation and really engage with the information that's in there, particularly then if you can see they're a good way too of seeing where there's gaps and where things might be wrong. So then for me and my planning team, then we can go and review that and, you know, have a workshop and review things and make sure that we've got everything updated. So it's a real kind of, you know, it's a team effort.
It's beautiful and a wealth of information. And I know I work for Department of Conservation in New Zealand. We use these sort of dashboards. Yours are that you've just shown are much more thorough and they're so useful. It's a massive resource for people to engage with. Yeah, really impressive. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I agree. They're really, particularly those. I mean, any of the pages, but particularly being able to, see a project, but then see across multiple projects within a landscape for us, but then see programs. You know, we want to be able to say, look, this is how we're going with fire management across the whole country. This is how we're going with weeds, particular weed species. So we're working towards getting to a, you know, a more kind of focused pages for particular things as well. I'm sorry if I went through too much in a small amount of time because we're about to have an exam and probably all going to fail because I've said too many things.
Thanks, Beth. Debs, you have a hand up.
Yeah, you get a lot of questions from those of us from across the ditch, don't you? We're always poking into things. So Claire, thanks for that presentation. I've got to admit the amount of information coming at me was just a little bit overwhelmed to start with. So I've probably got some basic questions and like, just show me where that was again. But I think for me, there's a couple of questions. One is like, obviously, I'm just thinking this around the applicability of work that we're doing at the moment, which is literally putting a monitoring, evaluation, learning plan into Miradi for Kotahitanga Multitail. And one of the challenges that I find in it, and I just wanted to check in with you, is that not everything that we do is actually done by us, it's done by other partners. So do you have that kind of collaborative engagement with this, or is it pretty much Bush Heritage staff are inputting into it?
The projects are collaborative, but
Yep.
what we decide to show in the dashboard, I mean, that's our prerogative, and we won't we're not ready yet to be showing some of those things in those dashboards, because many staff can see across. The idea of them is that staff can go in and look at other people's projects and learn from them. And so there's, again, other classifications that we assign to projects depending on where they're kind of at. So whether it's a partner project or a bush heritage reserve project, or is it a landscape project? So that kind of helps to, you know, police the information that's coming through. So, because we need to think about what's in our agreements and you know, just how we're managing those relationships and what we want to be able to share and not share.
That's awesome. Are you able to use this for things like, what I really liked was this knowledge strategy, actually. That was kind of really novel for me, and I thought that was a really interesting thing to bring in. So actually I could watch this all again, and I'm sure I'd just learn a completely new set of information if I watched your presentation again. But another question I want to, and it might seem like I'm going back to the beginning again, but how does all of this link into Miradi? Like, where do these pages sit? Are you developing additional pages within Miradi, or are you using the tools that are in Miradi to develop or flesh these pages out? Or is that what Power BI is using, or is this outside Miradi in terms of the visual?
I'm just trying to think of well, we're not adding, the only thing we're adding, which Heritage is adding to Miradi, is additional classifications.
Right, okay.
Our own bush heritage classifications. We use, of course, in Miradi, it's all about conceptual models. So depending on how we set up those conceptual models and our results chains and things, and our own business rules about where objectives and goals and things sit, that's kind of, there's scope for us to move that kind of thing around. But Miradi and the structure of the software stays the same.
Okay, that's good to know. So you weren't having to make major adaptations or any. Well, I guess Miradi is Miradi, isn't it? So all of this, sorry, just for me, my clarity again, all of this sits within Miradi. You know,
not everything I showed you. A lot of some of the pages, it's information coming from Miradi, because I have a really good API now. Whereas historically, you know, now you can pretty much pull anything out of Miradi, kind of into that interface, then allows you to that information to talk to other systems. So this is why we are able to build these dashboards now. But then other pages will be pulling information from the finance system. And then we might be able to pull information from our supported database. I mean, it really just depends. The spatial system. So, you know, you go as far as you want, really.
Thanks, Claire. Do you want to come and work for us for a bit? Thanks, Melissa.
I think Mike Honey is probably the person you want, because I'm actually not the technical. I'm not the technical guru. I'm kind of exploring the mysteries of dashboard, kind of the technical side of things, but I'm pretty kind of elementary when it comes to building the back end.
I really love the automation of things that you're not just having to go in. So thank you. Really interesting. I'll have to rewatch this.
Any questions outside of this session, please email or give me a call. Anybody, we're always here to help.
Thanks, Claire.
Thanks, Debs. Really good question. I think probably that's sort of on the top of the mind for a lot of people here, including myself. It's like, oh, there's two systems. How do you marry them? So I have a follow-up question actually on that. This Bush Heritage has finance department. Do you have like a different finance sort of management system, or you sort of use the Power BI and then, or you link the two together?
We link the two together. So the finance data you saw in that dashboard, the finance team have just developed. It's the same data. It's the same data structure. Okay. It's a finance dashboard in Power BI, very similar. It just has an additional functionality for interrogating projects beyond just our conservation projects.
Right.
But the same data structure.
Mm.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
And sort of probably just looking around because there's no hands up at the moment, just following up on that. And I know you have been it's sort of an organizational sort of change, right? I mean, if you were to move from one system to another, and I know you've been working on this for a while, has it always been this case, or was there a change involved, and how long, how long did it take for the change to happen?
For the finance,
For them to streamline, with
I
the
think,
projects.
yeah, I think the finance team, and Mike can jump in here if he wants, but as when we developed those budget pages in the conservation management dashboard, when people saw that was a real game changer, because to reconcile budgets prior to that required going into a few different places, or having your own. I mean, people probably have their own spreadsheets anyway, but they'd be using that information to help inform that, whereas before that wasn't there. So when the finance team saw that, they was like, okay, we really do have that additional functionality now. So that's when they developed the more in-depth finance dashboard. It's that demonstration thing, isn't it? If you can kind of demonstrate that this can be useful, then hopefully people jump on board, and then they build a better one, and then before you know it, hopefully,
Yeah, that's what we want. Beth.
Thank you. And this might be a question for Mike. So with the Power BI dashboard, are there templates available? I mean, because part of it is knowing what you want, and when you're starting on this journey, it can be quite difficult to know exactly what you want. It's almost easier to start with someone else's template and then maybe simplify it or step back from there. So Claire, do you have a portion of, I mean, Claire, Mike, could you guys just say, is there some sort of template that we could follow for a complicated alliance set of projects?
Maybe I can take that one, Claire. Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Mike Honey. Yeah, I'm the technical guy who's been working with various people at Bush Heritage across multiple years to get to that point. But yeah, to answer your question, yes, the starting point was a template that we built for just for Miradi for any project. So Claire showed it at the beginning of her presentation, pointed at the Miradi seascape. Miradi Islands seascape example, but it can be reconnected to any program that's up in Miradi Share that you've got access to. It just needs like a permission request through the technical people that run Miradi Share to turn on that feature, and the template's freely available. So that gives you like pretty much all the data that's commonly used that I've encountered. Like whenever different people from different organizations have asked, how do we get this data if it's not already in the model, then I've just added everything into the template. So there's quite a lot there. And I think there's new data coming into Miradi, out of Miradi, isn't there, Claire? Was it something about work planning?
yeah, the work planning functionality.
Yeah, so as like new data rolls out, I'll try to include that in the template as well.
That's brilliant. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Was there any other questions from other participants? Anything you are thinking about or wondering, or maybe, comments, sharing experiences using dashboards, maybe not necessarily having to be Miradi or Power BI.
For Department of Conservation, when during COVID, after COVID, we had a Jobs for Nature program. So suddenly there was all this government funding to fund lots of projects around the country, but Department of Conservation managed those funds, and it was kind of a new space for us to be working in. And we used Power BI dashboards to for directors to stay across I guess, project managers and how well the projects were going and if they were meeting their milestones. They reviewed them on a monthly basis in a very similar way with that kind of red, amber, green. And if there are problems, some kind of some wording according to that so that they could follow that up and ask more questions. But it was very, very useful to get to see the trend and how things were going and where there were problems and, how they might improve things. So similar, the model that they used was more simple than what you showed, Claire. But yeah, I'm a big fan of these dashboards. They're really, you get so much information in a very short amount of time.
Thanks, Beth, for sharing. Yeah, I do agree. Rather than reading through probably 10 pages of report, having a dashboard sometimes is just much interesting, perhaps interactive. Mike has just put in 2 resources in the chat. So yeah, if you want to quickly, I think we can probably share this again through some ways after the webinar if people miss this out. But if you want to just click on the link and save that somewhere on your laptop, yeah, that would save you trying to find it later on. All right. Any other questions or comments or yeah, Debs?
Yeah, just finally, it seems that I know we talk about putting some resource into these kind of things, our reporting, our monitoring and things like that. In terms of a kind of project budget, what would you be putting aside for something to develop something like this, Claire? For obviously Bush Heritage is very big with multiple projects. We are 17 organisations in a partnership with the moment around 20 odd projects. So what kind of resource would you be thinking of putting in for developing something and then maintaining something like this?
Depends on if you've got, I mean, this is pretty rare, isn't it? If you've got a staff member that happens to know about dashboards and happens to have half a day a week free, that can be really useful. There's, if you do a bit of a skills analysis, who's got the skills, and you can kind of find a few people in the organisation that can, get a little bit of a working group together. But slowly, I mean, we've got Mike helping as a contractor, and then we have Annette Stewart, who couldn't be with us today. She's on holidays. She works half a day a week for us, but that's not even full-time. It's probably been full-time dashboards recently, just because there's a few things that we've wanted to kind of work on. But that, again, that's not a lot of a resource there. I'm not sure that I'm answering your question very succinctly, am I? It's going to be 3 o'clock in a minute. But not a lot. I mean, we probably need more financial support. It's been pretty minimal, to be honest, over the years. We probably had about, if you want to know the kind of numbers, we've probably had about 10, 15K in our budget just for additional kind of contractor support. But if we want to really map out where we really want to take these dashboards, we're going to have to step up a bit and think about it from a more organisational, what does it look like for the whole organisation to be using these for lots of different parts of the business.
Thank you. That is really helpful. Oh, great. Nat's asking a question.
I was just going to add, Claire, and maybe you can expand on this, but I can see just where Beth and Deb's questions seem to be going. This has taken a while for Bush Heritage to get in place, hasn't it? Like originally it was Annette that sort of started the process of getting it set up. But perhaps if you could speak to the kind of what it took for the organisation to get to this point where it is now basically an institutionalised system. Where the staff are entering the data and using the data and all of that sort of side of things. It's been a journey to get to this point, as far as I understand it. So if you could speak to that a
Oh,
little
no,
bit.
that's true. And we're not at the end. We haven't put our backpacks down yet. We still need to fill up our water bottles. But it has been a long time. It's probably been, I'm just trying to think, 10 years since we really started just dabbling. I mean, once you see that the dashboard functionality was there, the training resources to train people up becomes free, and you can just see things on YouTube. That really helps. But I think it's just finding a little case study and just demonstrating how these things can really help and save lots of time. And it's just been slow increments of being able to do that. The next step of like, here, this is how we can help you do this, or being able to see the budgets versus actuals, which is really just something we've been able to do in the last year, has really been a game changer for that part of the dashboard. So it's really kind of, it's a bit of a roller coaster, but really depending on what new technologies out there, maybe occasionally we've had additional resource to really work on this. So, it just really depends. But yeah, it has been it's not like, oh, quick, although now that there are a lot of works out there and you've got that Miradi template that Mike put in the chat link, that's really fast paced, a lot of this stuff.
And Claire, obviously I'm not at Bush Heritage, but have heard bits and pieces over the years of things like, when you do your conservation planning, and for the staff that are doing the conservation planning, being able to do the budgeting in Miradi and seeing that being pulled into, finance systems all of a sudden makes that real, and there's an incentive there for staff to update things in Miradi, for example. Those kind of things because it's not just obviously the systems and the information that relies on the staff actually going in there and updating the data so that you can then pull the data out into dashboards. So
that is such a critical thing. You're right. Without the good data, you don't have good data going in. You're not going to have good data coming out. So yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you very much, Claire, for your sharing, and Mike as well, and Debs and Beth for your very, very good questions. I'm sensing that you're going to take this somewhere with KMTT work. Yeah, good. And Claire's already had offered if you need to reach out and ask about those technical side of things or system side of things, you're welcome to do that, and this recording will be available very, very shortly after this webinar, so that you can all jump on and relook at the video again. Cool. So we're reaching our end of the webinar. So unless anybody has a very, very, very quick last question, I will just close this off with a karakia. Kia whakairia te tapu, kia wātia ai te ara, kia turuki whakataha ai, kia turuki whakataha ai, haumi e, hui e, tai ki. So restrictions are moved aside, so the pathways is clear to return to everyday activities. So for most of you, I think you still have quite a few hours left in your day. Well, for those in Aotearoa, New Zealand, there's 2 hours left, unless you want to work late today. So have a good rest of your day, and we'll hope to see you next time in our next webinars. Thank you very much.